Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Harvey and Lexi here. You both have been behind really an incredible company in that helps infants, helps young people with sleep, and really also helps the parents. Make sure that that they have the confidence that their kids being properly taken care of, and they can do their own things. They're not going to be concerned about any issues happening when the child is sleeping. And you've built something that's, I think, really great product. It's seamless. It's something that I think is just what parents have needed for a long time and just hasn't been out there yet. And I mean, Harvey, you have such an extensive background just on this topic from, just as an author and writer. So it's just great to have you guys here, and I'm excited to get into the episode.
Thanks. It's great to be with you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So how did this like passion of yours to, want to help infants and, make sure that they don't have to have any issues, for the parents, that they can be in a great place and there's no, concerns. How did this kind of just interest in just child health in general happen?
Well, I would say that, I'm a pediatrician. And so I spent 30 years almost in the office taking care of families. And I was really interested in the development of the child, which sounds kind of crazy because you think pediatricians, what else would you be interested in? But we spend in our training a lot of time learning about diseases, even rare diseases, and not that much about what is the everyday, kind of experience that parents have with kids. So that was really the part that interested me. How do you understand the everyday things? And so I wrote a book about 25 years ago, which was really meant to answer a question. What is colic? Why do babies cry? And how can you help them? And what I discovered or observed was that they kind of have an off switch for crying and an on switch for sleep that wasn't really noticed before. It's kind of weird to say, you've been around babies for thousands of years. How could you notice something that you never noticed before? But it was pretty substantial to have this really a reflex that babies are born with. So I wrote a book about that, and that became pretty popular. But I
Pretty
was,
popular. New York Times bestseller, multiple millions of copies. The humble pediatrician.
yeah. So, but what I really wanted was to affect change. I wanted to help people, but I wanted to also move the ball forward, and kind of improve the health of parents, the health of children, and I wanted to reduce something called SIDS or infant death. Have you ever heard of that,
Yeah.
Ben? Yeah. So this thing happens where babies roll over and get their face into the mattress, or they're brought into bed with their parents, and they get into a weird position. And as amazing as it sounds, about 3,700 healthy babies die every single year in the United States when they kind of get into a
Wow.
bad position or something like that. To put that in perspective, that's the number of Americans who died in 9/11, except it
Wow.
happens every single year. For the last 25 years, no change. For the last 25 years, we've seen a 25% reduction in death from infections and prematurity and cancer in little kids and things like that. But deaths from SIDS have gone up 10%. And so I was really challenged by that. And I figured, why can't we keep kids on the back? Why can't we protect them? Why can't we help them sleep better? Because if you sat in a rocking chair all night long, you could help your baby sleep better. Or what pediatricians tell parents all the time, drive them in the car. And even adults fall asleep in the car, right? So anyway, so then my wife and I came to the decision that this was not an unsolvable problem. Getting kids to sleep, getting them to cry less, getting them to be safer in their sleep. And that was really the impetus of it. And then Lexi, who is our head of marketing, but also our daughter, said, I'll put a bow around that for you. I'll get that into the world and really help you stand on top of the platform and get people to know about it. And she's done a fantastic job.
You're kind. It's actually a fun, little known kind of tidbit, but he was just so ahead of his time. I'm in my 40s, so I wasn't too young when the idea sprung, and there weren't as many connected devices just 10 years ago, and certainly not in the baby space. So I believe I really said, "You're crazy." But then I saw how brilliant it was. And during the inception period, when they were beta testing the products, when we would see people crying, offering their life savings to keep the product. And we were like, sorry, we only have three. Like, we got to go to the next family. Then I knew like I had to eat my words and come begging for a job.
How did you guys actually come up with the way this would be designed? Like, were there a couple different iterations you had, and how did you land on the design that you have now?
Well, actually, as crazy as it sounds, we had a very clear idea of what we wanted from the very beginning. Because there's certain restrictions, right? I mean, it's for a baby, it's a
Mhm.
mechanical thing, so it couldn't be huge. And we wanted something that, even though it's a device, we wanted it to be poetic. We want it to be whimsical. We wanted these. You know how it is. You're in products, and you get these, you write words on the whiteboard. What do you want people to think about when you have this product? And we want it to be whimsical and to be inviting and to be poetic and to be beautiful and for people to think, I just want that. Actually, I want to put that in my living room instead of my kid's bedroom because I want my friends to see it when they come over. And so the concept of the design, having the airy mesh, for airflow and things like that, those were pretty much kind of check off the box details that we wanted from the very beginning. And then we hired one of the world's greatest industrial designers to really help us tune that and figure that all out. We're really super proud of that because this little baby bed, I mean, kind of weird to think about it, but this baby bed has been featured in museum shows
Wow.
around the world, from the London Design Museum and the Victoria and Albert in London to San Francisco MoMA. It's in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian, which isn't what you normally think about when you think. I mean, hopefully your shoe will be in the Smithsonian. That would be great. But we're super proud of the fact that besides being so effective, it's also so aesthetically, pleasing for families.
Mhm. Lexi, when you were thinking about like marketing this and just communicating it to people, like you mentioned, just the initial reaction you had, but I think there's a lot of people that probably weren't even sure what this was. How do you go about marketing? How did you go about sharing this message of what this could do?
Yeah, it's a really actually interesting question because now, we're in a different place. And I think if you are expecting or trying to conceive, there's nobody who hasn't heard of it. But I think in the beginning, there were two things. I think one, you know, he came at this as a pediatrician trying to solve a problem. It has such a fantastic origin story of being like a complete do-gooder pediatrician who really said to me, I have to save as many babies as I can before I die. And that's really his MO at all times. And so, being sort of an acclaimed author and giving a talk at a medical conference, he got heckled and he was talking about the crisis of SIDS in the United States with those staggering numbers that he shared. And then, someone heckled him and yelled, you're famous, you fix it. And
Hmm.
that day, like the best startup origin story that a brander could hope for, that day, he and my mom were at a restaurant right after the conference and he doodled what's 90% of the design of SNOO. Like it looks just like the doodle. And it was so brilliant. And so I think the biggest obstacle was really get people to know it's not a piece of technology or a robot. It's kind of like a human service and a spare set of hands.
Mm.
And that it was backed by a doctor because of safety in solving a crisis. And the bigger crisis, which was also really interesting for me. So I had to kind of like get past people walking by and thinking it's just a beautiful bassinet. We launched it at the American Academy of Pediatrics, and people kind of walked by and they're like, oh, huh. And then they would see that it moved. So you have to kind of really school people, and that's a bit of education because the product has so many features, that it moves, that it's automatic, that it's responsive, that it responds to your individual baby's needs, which was truly unheard of, especially 10 years ago. Um, and then the other part was really, in a way, like a good marketing story of how you can get it wrong, because I thought that keeping babies safely on their backs was like the biggest selling point and kind of trying to provide a solution for this really somewhat preventable tragedy. And instead that didn't resonate. People were super stoked on the tired part. And you know as Harvey said, like the number one pain point for new parents, and this is around the world, regardless of, whether you work, what your income level is, how much family leave you have, the number one pain point for new families is exhaustion.
Mm.
So in all the marketing surveys and the experience of trying to like get the right taglines and compel people in the right way, we realized that the safety issue was actually second, and that's not what sold and worked, but what really worked was the amazing data we had of how much extra sleep, because SNOO can get you 1 to 2 hours of sleep per night, every night, sustained for the duration of the use of SNOO. um,
Right. So what people really thought was that my kid's going to be safe. I mean, what's the chances? Everyone kind of just calculated that, but they knew they were going to have sleep issues, and every day reminded them that they were going to have sleep issues. But what's curious about this is that it was very expensive. I mean, this is technology. It's expensive. You have to ship it, from outside the U.S., et cetera. And so it was expensive to sell it. And so in the beginning, it was this bougie baby bed, that was like, you know, celebrities and whatnot. And people went, well, that's not that, what is the value of this? So rich people can be richer and yeah, they can have an easy life, but the rest of us can't. But our goal and the reason, I mean, I was retired actually. I was writing books and lecturing and had a nice life. And but our goal was that everyone would get this and everyone would get it for free. That was our mandate from the very beginning. We wanted everyone to be able to have access to this and get it for free, meaning that it would be paid for by your employer or by insurance or by Medicaid or some other group so that everybody, because it turns out the biggest stress on the family, of course, exhaustion is a huge stress, but the biggest stress is the absence of the extended family. Because for the entire history of humanity, up until 100 years ago, your grandma was upstairs, your cousin lived next door to you, everybody would be sitting at the kitchen table. And and while that had some downsides, probably, it also had the upside of being able to give you support when you have a baby. And then people moved away from home, which was fun and exciting, and they had a career. Then they had a baby in Brooklyn, and then they go, what the, what's going on here? I need help. And then it's so expensive to hire a nanny, whatever. So in a certain sense, no, we're not moving back to the farm, but we wanted to use technology to try to buffer the family, to give them a little bit of that extended family 24-hour support. Um, but when we came out of the gate, it had to be expensive. So it got this rep of being, oh, that's for those people. And then we brought out a rental unit. And now we have tens of thousands of people get it for free from their employer, like from Chase Bank to Dunkin' Donuts to Snapchat to Google. And now we're really launching it into Medicaid programs and insurance plans. So we're really working hard to get this to the people who really need it the most.
Mhm. How have you gotten like the cost to make it to come down to the point where it made that transition you were just talking about? Like, was that really a long journey, or was it shortly after you started building it?
We built that. That was the intentionality from the very beginning. So when we built these beds, we tested them to 20, 30 million cycles. So
Mm-hmm.
we knew they were durable. Normally you buy something for a baby, it's cheap, it breaks down easily, that kind of a thing. And then you just throw it away. And we wanted something that we could use over and over again because the only way, I mean, it's really the key. Your question is the key point, which is how do you get the unit economics to scale and make this a profitable company? Because if you're not profitable, you wasted all your time. You have to be able to return a profit to your investors. It's just the way of the world. And so we built it to be reused over and over. And when you can use it over and over, suddenly the cost of that is going to shrink. And it's really part of this circular economy, which has become such a buzzword. And we see it in all aspects of the economy. And so but we didn't know if people would rent a bed for a baby. That was the question mark, right? Would you put your baby in a bed that another baby was in? But of course, it's all new soft goods, and we clean it to the level that it's, the hygiene of beds in the hospital, with it completely sanitized, and it turns out that people have been very open to the idea of use it for 6 months and send it back, and then 2 years later, if you need it again, you can rent it again.
Yeah, I mean, I like that model a lot because I think that I mean, you see people that have a kid and then they buy all this equipment. Some of them never use it again, and they've made all this huge investment. And it's like, you didn't even need to spend maybe as much as that if you could just rent something for a certain period of time, and you've built it to last, like you mentioned, for a long time. You can just keep doing that, and it just reduces the costs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no
then if you could get
landfills.
it for free, and right, reduce things going to the landfills and the waste involved. And we use organic cotton so that we're helping the farmers not be exposed to pesticides and whatnot. But if you can do all of that and do it for free for people, that was really the goal. And the reason that works is because if you can reduce healthcare costs, if you can help people get back to work better rested and improve productivity and reduce errors and accidents and liability, it's a win-win-win-win situation.
Hmm.
And that's what we're seeing. Do you know what a net promoter score is?
I've heard of it.
So, so when you have a product, they rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. Like
Hmm.
0 is this is the worst piece of crap. I would never recommend this. 10 is like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm telling everybody I know. And then they weight it to the negative. So they take 0 to 6 versus 9 and 10. And so like a lot of companies, even when you like a company, there are naysayers and yay sayers. And it's about a 0 is pretty common for companies. An Apple product is really loved, and maybe that's a 50 or 60 or even a 70. And SNOO is like in the 80s. So
Wow.
it is like people people feel so rescued when they have this as a backstop, as a support system. And then the companies love it because actually companies spend it's like $4.5 a day. It's a friggin' coffee for Chase to give this bed to their employees. But even for other companies, like we have a janitorial service in a company in Southern California where these guys are and women are cleaning the toilets at the hospitals. But this company cares about their people, and for $4 a day, it's like, I'm going to give you something to help you get rest, take care of your baby, keep your baby safe. And the loyalty you build when you do that is just off the charts.
Yeah. Harvey and Lexi, do you guys know like how many babies you've saved at this point, or like have some sort of estimation? I'm sure it's a lot. You've been doing this for some time.
One of the things that we're super proud of is that this isn't just a nice little, baby bed consumer electronics doohickey. There are a lot of there are a lot of imitators out there, which is my bed moves, my bed makes sound. But we are FDA de novo authorized. We're the only product for babies ever that has gotten the seal of approval from the FDA as being safe and effective for keeping babies on the back. And what we do know is that keeping babies on the back is the number one recommendation for reducing the risk of infant death. And so over 90% of babies who die, over 90% of these 3,700 babies either die when they roll over or get face down in their bed,
Mm.
or when they're brought into their parents' bed or some unsafe location. Over 90% of the deaths are that. And we know we prevent by sleeping better because we immediately add an hour to the baby's sleep, like right away. And we keep the baby on the back. They can't roll over. So right away, we're reducing what we believe is, a big part of the risk that babies have. Oh, but there's more. Because one of the things we're learning now, and this is going to blow people's minds, there are two things we're learning that are complete reshifts in the world of babies. Number one, you wouldn't drive 3 minutes in your car without putting your baby in a car seat. Number one, it's against the law. You'd be arrested for child endangerment. You wouldn't put him even in a high chair without strapping them in, or in a stroller without strapping them in. But the number one place healthy babies die is in their own bed or their parents' bed. And we put them there for 12 hours a night. Like, I hope they don't roll into a bad position tonight. Why take
Mhm.
that chance? So SNOO will be known as the first car seat for sleeping babies because we prevent that risk. That's number one. Number two, do this, do this thought experiment. What is most nurturing for the brain of a developing infant? Would it be to spend 12 hours at night being held and rocked and responded to, which is what SNOO is able to do throughout the night, 12 hours? Or is it better for the developing brain of an infant to spend 12 hours of sleep locked in a dark closet. I mean, I'm exaggerating, obviously, for effect, but I mean, the point is that everyone says, the baby's sleeping tiptoe, put them in a dark, quiet room by themselves. That's sensory deprivation for a baby. In the womb, it's a symphony of sensations, constant holding, constant rock. Every time you breathe, you're rocking your baby. The sound of the womb, the vroom, vroom sound that they have 24/7. So to suddenly put them in a dark, quiet room is actually weird beyond belief for babies. And they're begging us, please just hold me. Just rock me. I'm a little baby. Just hold me and rock me. And SNOO now gives them thousands of hours more holding and rocking. And what we're seeing, so we're already seeing evidence of improving brain development, what we believe is improving brain development, because a normal 2 to 3 month old will give you about a 5 hour stretch of unbroken sleep. In SNOO, by 2 to 3 months, we're seeing an average of 6.5 to 7 hours. That's a
Wow.
30-40% increase. That means we're maturing the brainstem sleep regulatory ability 2 to 3 months earlier than expected. And there are other studies of holding and rocking that show if you do this for hours and hours a day, you actually improve brain development 15 and 20 years later. So we're not saying that we know that yet for a fact. This is still something that we're studying. But we're very excited by the idea that 2, 3, 4 years from now, people are going to go, why did you guys put your baby in dark silence for all night? Why wouldn't you give them a rich sensory environment? So this is going to blow people's minds when we collect all the data to be able to make that case.
Yeah, I mean, I see your pitch to companies. It's like if you want to have employees better rested, this is the way to go. It's a pretty simple pitch at this point.
Yeah, and actually, Lexi is working on this other pitch for bringing people on board. You want to talk about the consumer pitch on the website?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways. It's so interesting. You're right. Companies like it, and it's not just because they're less exhausted, as Harvey said. Having increased car accidents and absenteeism from work, and a slew of other things. And actually, the data shows that around 40% of moms don't come back to work after they give birth. So it's really hard to replace employees in general, but especially now that people are having babies a little older and they're really focused on their professional careers. Like I just gave birth a few weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, 16 weeks ago.
Huh.
I don't know what time it is, but I'm in my 40s and I was really working a lot, and that's kind of, I don't know, time accidentally passed. And so we're seeing that a lot with executive, middle management, and higher women and men both. And so it's also extremely costly for them, for these companies, to replace these higher level executives who are really important for their tactical strategy and all kinds of other things. So there's a lot of built-in ROI for the company. But to incentivize the consumer, we have a fun thing that we've been doing for a while now, which is if you introduce us to a company and we sign them. So any stranger from the entirety of the internet, you can get up to $5,000 cash and a free SNOO, which is pretty cool. And it's unusual. I think it like incentivizes the people to be evangelists. But what we've seen is like they loved it anyway. Like we have gotten certain companies where there are like over 100 people who like pinged their HR, and then the HR
Knocking at the
person,
door.
yeah. So the HR person is like, what is this product? Like, why do I have to have it? And then it's a no-brainer given some of the things I mentioned. But it's a really fun thing, and it's not as common to go D2C with your B2B.
Hmm. So,
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and when the company, and then it's a no-brainer for the companies because we have 0% churn. I mean, once a company starts using it, it's usually rated the number one benefit at the entire company. The benefits managers give this a net promoter score of 88, which is off the charts. And so, again, it's the cost of a coffee, or you know what it's the cost? I mean, $4 or $5 a day, even for any consumer can rent this for like $5.30 a day, and it ships to them for free. Now, $5.30, that sounds like, wow, that's a lot of money. But you could get a babysitter to come into your house and hold your baby for 20 minutes for $5. Or you can have a SNOO help you 24 hours a day, all throughout the night, when you're cooking dinner, when you're playing with your kids, when you're doing a Zoom call, when you're taking a shower, you have an extra pair of hands. People go, oh, that's so much money. Actually, for 24-hour care compared to 15 minutes of a teenage babysitter's time, it's like the best value you could possibly imagine, we think, and keep your baby safer, and it
Hmm.
sleep trains your baby, and maybe even helps their noodle a little bit as well.
One of my best pieces of feedback from the employee benefit program is we had a guy who calculated how much they actually spend on coffee,
Yeah,
and demonstrate that, and that it was actually cheaper to the delta of coffee cups for regular people and people who had just had a baby was so high that it was cheaper to get them a SNOO. So it was like very black and white.
yeah.
Wow. So what's kind of next for you guys at this point? I mean, you've got a great product. A lot of people love it. I mean, obviously, scale is something that's a continuous focus here. But what are some of maybe the future things you want to create? Your goals at this point overall? What do you want to build now?
I
So
think
there are a bunch of
oh, go
major
ahead.
thanks. A bunch of major initiatives that we're doing. So number one, helping hospitals. So there are about 180 hospitals that now use SNOO, and we've demonstrated 97% of nurses say it reduces their stress, and on average, each bed reduces nurse labor 4 to 5 hours per day. So
Mm,
SNOO is the very first care robot in the hospital, and it's in the newborn intensive care units and on postpartum, et cetera, helping improve care and keep babies safe while they're in the hospital, improve sleep, et cetera. So that's one big thing. We want to help hospitals to be able to bring care to their babies because there's a nursing shortage, and so people need that extra support. That's number one. Number two, of course, we want to get this in. Everyone who wants one of these to be able to get this for little or no cost, and have the insurance companies, et cetera, pay for that. Number three, we're working on, we've had over a dozen studies that have been finished, another dozen studies underway. So this is serious science. This isn't just a baby product. This is really an advance in science. And one of the things we're looking at now is, can we prevent or reduce postpartum depression? Because 20% or more of new mothers and even many new dads develop depression and anxiety. And what we're showing is, oh, you can increase sleep, reduce crying, reduce the anxiety. The baby's going to get into trouble. Give parents a support system. Give parents predictability throughout the day. Because with SNOO, you can organize your day better, make you feel successful and confident. All of those things are protective against, mental stress. And so we're very, very excited that, can we, again, for one single price, have this multiplicity of benefits. So studies are underway looking at that, and we're gathering data on that. And then, um, and then the other big, big thing that we're doing now is addressing an issue that is a global threat that is very underappreciated. It's not climate change. We wish we could address that as well. It is the drop in population. So
mm-hmm.
countries like Japan, Korea, even China, Singapore, Italy, Germany, Hungary, um, all across the globe, they are in a population down spiral
Mm,
where 20 to 50 years from now, the population will be cut in half. Not the elderly population, that's going to expand, but the number of babies that are trying to hold up and support the elderly is
mm-hmm.
going to dramatically contract in the United States as well. Our population, our birth rate has dropped 20% in the last 15 years, and it's going in that direction. So this is going to be impossible from an economic point of view, from a national security point of view. And countries are spending billions of dollars. Korea has spent $270 billion over the last 15 years to try to encourage births, and they failed. They've shown it's plummeted, even though they're spending money on it. And what we've now learned is that giving money is a good thing, give tax credits, that's a good thing, but you also have to give universal convenient childcare and
Mm,
say, I'm going to help you raise your baby. So have a baby and we're going to help you with that. And we're going to give you money too. And so SNOO is universal in-home convenient childcare for the first 6 months of life, but for the cost of a coffee a day. And so now I'll be traveling all around the world over the next few months, speaking with governments to help them see how we can start programs that can kind of build up their birth rate again by giving this type of support. So it's not going to be a panacea for that, but it moves it in the right direction.
I think that's what's so funny. That's what I wanted to say, but you led me exactly there, which is I think so many, marketers or founders say like we want to be in every home. That's our goal. But truly speaking, in every developed nation, in every place where somebody who has a child has access to electricity, there can and hopefully will be a SNOO. And most of these cases won't be on the consumer. They will be, as he's mentioning, from the government, from subsidies, from insurance, from their corporation. Any way that they can, we need to help these families.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this. I think it's important that, you've not only built something that really solves a big problem, that you've put like probably just as much focus, if not more, into making it as accessible as possible. And like that's a really big deal here. And I think that it's great that you've talked about that and that you have a lot more continued plans to do that, because, the goal is just to save more babies. And the only way to do that is to get this, in the hands and in the homes of more people. So I'm excited to see what's going to come next. And I think it's great you guys have this is your mission, and wishing much success. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ben. We're super excited about it. It's one of those things, and I know you have the excitement with the work you're doing, where you come in every day, you're like energized because you're making progress and you're seeing your dreams coming into reality. And I would just say one last thing, which is that having a baby, when we bring on employers to provide this for their employees, we usually tell them this little joke, this little story, which is that you may not remember what you ate for lunch 4 days ago, but if you have a baby and I come over and say, Ben, I brought you this lasagna, don't even clean the dish, I'm just thinking about you. 20 years from now, you will remember that I brought you that lasagna. And so this is an incredibly focused period of your life where when people help you, you're deeply appreciative. And not only do we want to stop the bad things like infant death and depression and marital stress and all that kind of stuff, but we want to create a virtuous cycle of feeling smart, competent, bonded to the baby, improving the baby's health, and really move the whole culture and society in a positive direction. That's our mission. And it's really as broad as you could possibly imagine to help really families and hospitals and nurses and governments all around the world. So rolling up our sleeves here, we got a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. It's
Thanks.
awesome of what you've done, and I'm definitely just excited to see it continue to grow, and it's great that you care about this.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Really
Ben.
appreciate it.